Well, after many technical difficulties, hello everyone, welcome back to Teen Talks. This is episode 3 now, so welcome back if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this somewhere, maybe on Spotify or some podcast thing somewhere in the world. Wherever you are, welcome back. And yeah, we're still going, we're going strong, right?
Yep.
And yeah, what do we do on this podcast, Susan? Can you explain to everyone what type of conversations we have, what the purpose of this podcast is?
So basically, it's me, the older person and a parent and an educator, and you who are a little just barely out of your teen years, who are doing great things, having a conversation and how we can best support each other. So that's the plan, and we're hoping to have a lot of fun and bring a little wisdom in and help our parents and teens out there get along better, have a great relationship. That's
Exactly,
what it's all about.
exactly. Yeah,
So you're in France right now,
I'm in France
and
right now. Beautiful weather here, by
last
the way. Beautiful
yes, nice.
weather.
Same
It's
here
so
in
nice.
Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Is
went
that
to a Mariners game last night. It was beautiful and watched the baseball and gorgeous night. So that was fun.
nice? Nice. That's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, you wanted to say something?
you froze.
You
You
froze
froze.
too. We I think we might have frozen mutually. Uh,
Okay.
so yeah,
So
you
you
were
were
saying,
talking about ADHD earlier.
yeah,
You want
yeah.
to say you have ADHD?
I
I
do have
think I think
ADHD.
that I do too. I think I do.
So it's really interesting. There's a podcast called The Diary of a CEO. I love this podcast. It's hosted by this guy named Stephen Bartlett, and he has all sorts of guests on. He has entrepreneurs on, artists on, actors, actresses, musicians. He has singers, songwriters. He has just all sorts of people on his podcast, and he really goes deep into their stories and how they've come about. And there's one especially, he also does a lot of health and science related stuff, and one of them is on ADHD, and
Ah,
it pretty much unveiling like the truth behind ADHD and things like that. And I've been recently on my social media, I've been getting a lot of content related to ADHD,
hmm.
and it's been shifting my perspective on it because first of all, I think we all, to some extent, have some sort of um, focus. Like we all struggle with focus sometimes, staying focused. And,
Oh, totally.
for example, one thing that I know is when it comes to reading books, right? Because this came about when you were, putting your book under your laptop or your computer to mount up your
Yeah.
book. And I was saying, yeah, books are made for tripods, not for reading. Um,
No, no. I
um,
picked the crappy ones and stuck them under there.
the whole thing was that for me, especially when it comes to books that I'm not necessarily interested in, but I kind of have to read for, maybe it's for school or maybe it's for something like that. Um, I just find myself constantly just like looking at the words, but not actually reading the book.
Mhm.
But then there was a book that I was really interested in, Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, and I was able to read that book like in a week. That was the first book that I've finished in
Green
such a long
lights.
time. Yeah. And
Same with me. Yeah, good
so
book.
it's such a good book. It's such a good book. And that's the first book that I've like read in such a long time. And I was able to read the whole entire book. And I didn't have that like focus problem at all. Like I was able to stay focused, and because I was enjoying it, I wanted to read it. And I can use the same thing when it comes to being in school. When I was in school, like I have video footage of friends taking videos of me literally like either I'm sleeping in class or I'm just not paying
You?
attention. Yeah, I know. What a great role
Uh-huh.
model. I know this is amazing. But um
Happens.
I still had good grades. I still did work. I did my homework. I did everything I needed to do outside of school. But when I was in school, in class, it was very, very hard for me to concentrate. But then when you put me onto a soccer field or football field for my European people out there, it was a whole other thing. I was the most focused person there because I wanted to be there and I had that drive and there was no distraction. There's never, you know, so it's an interesting thing. I almost feel like ADHD, right? First of all, I don't think it is necessarily a disorder. I think it can actually be a superpower in many ways because yes, you might not be focused in certain things, but the things that matter, you naturally will be focused on those things, right? You'll want to
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
more of them. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's just my little take on ADHD, at least from my perspective and what I've experienced through it. And you were saying like you even think that you have some form of it.
I Yeah. So were you actually diagnosed with ADHD? You
Yeah.
were.
Yeah,
See,
but it's like I told them how I was feeling and like how I am, how I act, right? Which for me, by the way, is completely normal. Like I do not think that it is a bad thing. I don't see it as something
no.
that has hurt me and or anything like that. But the doctors were like, yeah, this is what you seem to have based off of what you've told us, and here's like potential medication. One second. There's a not my dog, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, and then they were like, here's some medication that you can take to regulate all that. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So I
Yeah.
haven't done anything about it. I've just been me and embraced it and been like, yeah, I'd like to be jittery. I'd like to not necessarily be focused all the time. Like that's just who I am and I'm okay with it. But some people
And you
have it
learn to make it
worse.
work.
I have, yeah,
Oh, sometimes they're worse.
you find solutions, but I know that some people have it worse. Some people, for them, it's almost debilitating in many ways. Like they really struggle with, you know, staying focused in general and being able to
Yeah.
complete tasks and do things like that. So but yeah, so go ahead, sorry. Go ahead, you were
Oh,
saying.
no. Okay. So when you were in school and you said you were falling asleep and things like that or whatever, did you have a hard time like with tests and things?
Yeah, yeah, there I know I'm not embarrassed to say it, but it's for people who don't like know me like fully really really well. My classmates, my old classmates, they know this about me. Like I was a mix between kind of like the crazy kid in class, but also like somehow, some way I was able to get like really good grades. Like I was amongst the top of the class, but still like I was a nutty kid.
Yeah.
And there were times in during tests and things like that, like I'd be writing the test and I'd just stop for a second because I couldn't, I literally, it was like there was too much going on, and I'd look around and there was too much silence, right? So I'd just like I'd blurt out like a quick noise. I'd be like ah! just I know, but I did struggle with the concentration side of things, but then I would just chunk things up slowly
Yes,
and
you
then
figured
I'd
out a strategy. You figured
yeah,
out a strategy.
yeah,
Yeah, that's good. As thousands of kids that I have worked with as a teacher, all that, I've seen kids like you,
yeah,
and they're always to me the more fun ones. But yeah, you just gotta figure out the way to make it work. And some people do need the medication, and some people can manage without it. Like I was saying, for me, I mean, I'm old now, but I'm looking back at the way I handle things sometimes, especially now since I'm self-employed and doing my own thing. It's like if I always say, if somebody were to put a camera on me and watch me during the day, it's like I go over here and I see something, I go, oh, that way. And then I go over here and I go, oh, let's see that way. And what was it I was supposed to be doing today? And then, it's just, and well, like you said, but if there's something that's just like so into it, everything else goes away. And that's just so,
yeah. Yeah,
uh,
I think yeah, during the day, like it's easy to drift off. It's easy to drift off and do different things. One thing that I know for me has been a game changer and lifesaver has been using a calendar. And I was
mhm.
introduced to like how to use a calendar and everything by a mentor of mine who I met actually at an event, at a leadership event, GYLS. I know we're going to talk about GYLS, I think, for like the longest time. People are going to get annoyed. Um, but he essentially introduced me to this whole concept of like using a calendar to structure your day and everything. And I knew about it, but I didn't realize that there were different ways of doing it, like different approaches that you could take to suit you as a person and how you work and how you enjoy to do things, and
Mhm.
and that's been a game changer for me because, like you were saying, you're self-employed, so you don't have like a schedule that you're following. I'm not in like any university or college or anything like that. I am also self-employed, and I'm a soccer player as well. So the only thing that I have that is set in stone is my training schedule. But other than that, I have complete control over my time. So the one thing that I realized is, okay, yeah, I can either let, my day go by, not really have like things set in place and just kind of see where the day takes me, or I can go into every single day with intention and like set up my calendar the day before and say, look, I'm gonna do this at this time, this at this time. And at first I'd be so scared of doing that because I would think like having that structure and discipline would, limit me. But
Mhm.
in reality, it actually gives me so much more freedom with my time and so much more control. So I really like that. But that's like one technique. I mean, if anyone out there, is struggling with either time management or just staying focused, it's like allocate time to these different things. And even if it is like, being on social media, if that's something that you like doing, like put time aside to,
Schedule it
you
in.
know, yeah, like put
Yeah.
time aside to go on TikTok for 15 minutes. Like that's okay. Just as long as you're doing it with intention.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I I have I've had people tell me about those schedule your day out. Use Google Calendar or whatever, and put blocks of time and say, I'm going to do this then and this then and this then. And for me, I really struggle with that
Yeah.
because I tend to go, oh, well, I want to do this longer, or I want to do this, or oh, I didn't get that to that today because I was so focused on this. So
Yeah.
it's really individual, and you got
It
to find
is.
what works for you.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that maybe in the future here in one of our podcasts, you can maybe go through exactly how you do it. And
Yeah.
that might be helpful, at
Yeah.
least a guide to get started.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure. Because also the thing about the way I do things is when I put something in my calendar, it's not necessarily like set in stone. Like
yeah.
I move things around quite a bit according to priorities, new things that come up. Um, for example, today, like literally today, yeah, the night before I set up my calendar, I was like, okay, going to do this, 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 and this. And then all of a sudden I get a message from a coach from a team that is interested in seeing me play to come up for a tryout. And the tryout's going to be on Monday, and it's quite far away from where I am right now. So all of a sudden, that became my focus. And I was like, okay, let me shift things in my calendar because I need to figure out how I'm going to get there, where I'm going to stay, do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really important for me to do that today. So again, very flexible with the time. I was able to just shift things around. Like you said, sometimes you want to spend more time on something and you realize that in the moment, you don't necessarily realize it the day before.
Right.
So yeah, it's
That's so true. Let's go back to thinking about, I'm thinking if there are teenagers listening and they're in school, right?
yeah,
So they're in school. So your day is structured, very structured around this
yeah,
certain 6 to 8 hours. What is it? 6 hours, 6.5 hours a day is totally structured. And then you have to factor in like sports or extracurriculars or
yeah.
homework or all this stuff. Is there any suggestions there that you would suggest for our teens who are listening to help them with that? I know it's a big deal.
Yeah, I would say you have so the way okay, this is if I'm gonna do like a very high level version of this, you have when it comes to your life in general and your schedule, you have things that are non-negotiable. And those are like your classes if you're in school. It could be like training if you have like, if you play basketball or if you play soccer or baseball or whatever that is. You have these non-negotiables because those are set at a certain time by someone else and you have to go to them, right? Um, so you have those you can't move around, you can't change that time, you can't do any of that, but those are set in stone. Now, the time that you have around all of that, that's the time that you can play around with. That's the time that you have for yourself, and you can choose what you want to do in those different time slots. But the first thing that I would say is, okay, like, what is it that you want? Because if you don't have an idea of what you want, then you're going to let that time just fly by, right? If
Mhm.
you, however, if you do know what you want, let's say you want to, really improve your academics, right? Then you know that you're going to need to spend a little bit more time on your own studying or doing your homework and doing things like that. That being said, if that is what you want, then you want to use those little free blocks of time that you have to focus on those things that you want to improve, right? So I would almost put it that way. I'd say, look, you have these non-negotiables, you have these things that are set in stone. Those you can't change at all. But with the free time that you do have, and I call this free time because it is time that you have control over, because no one else is telling you you need to be doing something at this time. With those little time slots, you choose what you want to do, right? But all I'd say is, like, have an intention behind it. Do something intentional. And that can be spending time with family. It can be working on a project that you have. It can be, going out with friends. It could be being on social media. It can also be doing homework. It can also be working on yourself in some way. It can also be working out. It can be all these different things, but choose what it is.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm thinking of it as a parent. Okay, so as from the parent's point of view, parents going, okay, all I do is see my kid, you know, to be that purposeful is great. But I
Yeah.
know a lot of teenagers aren't that purposeful, and maybe it's
Yeah.
because they don't know how, or
Yeah.
because they're just want to be focused on something that we don't understand. But as a parent, maybe the parent's job is to go, hey, I see that you're doing this and this and this. What is it you really want to do? What do you want out of life? What is your thing that really excites you? And let's see how we can make that work into your day a little better. And you know, some kids come home and they just play video games all day, all the way up until, which it's fine if you're going to become a professional video game player or whatever, but maybe for a parent to have that discussion. Video games are great. I mean, you can learn so much, you make friends, all that stuff. It's great, but maybe take it down a notch so that you have time to do other things as well. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It comes with self-discovery, right? Knowing,
Yeah.
identifying, like, what it is that you want. Now, you have kids that know exactly what they want to do when they're 10 years old or 12
Yes.
or
Yes.
13, right? But then you have adults who are in their 40s who don't even know, what that next step is. They don't know what
Right.
they want. They're lost as well.
Hmm. Yeah, we don't have it all together, let me tell you.
Yeah, and
Still
so
learning.
I almost want to say, and this might be like, I don't know how this is going to be taken, but I almost want to say that there's no right or wrong.
Hmm.
I don't think that there's a right or wrong. I don't think that because people out there, they seem to be ambitious and they seem to have these big dreams, and maybe your teen isn't that way. I don't think
Right.
that that is a bad thing. I think that there are different people who have different purposes in this world and in this life, and all of it is necessary. You need
Hmm.
people in the world who are going to, change things in a really big way, but you also need people in the world who maybe don't want to do it in a big way, but are going to do it in a really small way,
Hmm.
right? Both
Yeah.
of which have a huge impact and make a big difference. Um, and that doesn't mean that if your teen is playing a lot of video games, that they're not going to have a big impact in the world. And it also doesn't mean that someone who doesn't play video games is going to have a big impact in the world. You don't know. You don't
No.
know where this life is going to take them. And I think that this whole idea of, like, having it all figured out early on and knowing exactly what to do, it's so tough. It is such a
Yeah.
tough thing to do. And I
Yeah.
only started to realize this recently because I knew what I wanted to do from a very young age. I figured out what my passion was. I also figured out what my purpose was and my mission. I figured that out very early on.
You're lucky. Yeah. That's
I'm
good.
very
Yeah.
lucky, because then when I interact with my friends, um, they didn't have that. So they'd see me and they'd be like, how did you figure it out? And I just told, like, I'm not even able to pinpoint it. I think I just got lucky. And that's the honest truth,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I was exposed
Yeah.
to things in my life and I latched onto them. And then I guess I just made a decision and I was like, look, this is what I want to do. This is how I feel about it. And I just want to go for it. But it's so hard to figure that out. So yeah,
And
it's
then your
just, it's
parents
a,
supported you too. So that
and,
your
and
parents
my,
really said, even though it was difficult, yes, we can see you're passionate about this. We're
yeah,
going to support you in doing it. Right.
yeah, for sure. And it's maybe, I think parents have a good perspective and point of view on their kids. Parents can see things that the kids, they just don't see, right?
Hmm.
Parents can see, like, parents know when their kid is special or their kid is different. They recognize that. And it's almost like you kind of want to identify these little things that maybe your kid is really good at and try and just maybe guide them towards that. Just try and steer them that way.
Hmm.
Um, but at the end of the day, I mean, you can't make decisions for them, unfortunately. You
Nope.
can't make them do anything that they do not want to do, because at the end of the day, if they don't want to do something, they're not going to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, and
So
that's where a good parent comes in. To be parenting is such a relationship. Um, it's giving your child choices and then supporting those choices. So maybe, you
yeah,
okay, if you're getting into a battle, then give two or three different choices that they could choose from. But non-battle wise is if you as a parent, you want to let that your child's passions, let them do them,
yeah,
let them do them. They're not going to be your passions maybe, and they may seem a little crazy at times, but okay, it's turning them on. It's lighting that thing in their head that's and their heart that's on fire. um Support it, support it.
yeah,
And it may not be the way they end up going, it may be, but it's going to take them on this journey to somewhere. And instead of pushing them into something that is not them, so many parents do, they want you to do this and this and this and this, and it doesn't work that way for every kid. And
yeah,
we have to remember as parents that our children are not us.
yeah,
And I think that's hard. I know
yeah.
I've had three, I've raised three, and I'm like, why are you going this direction? But I had to hold back. I did make a few mistakes. I think I said this before, that my oldest was the one who did everything perfectly, and he did the path, the typical college path and all that. My other two just kept saying, "We're not Ryan," and they
Yeah,
totally went different ways, and they're finding their way back, and now they're happy and doing the things they want. It's not what I would have chosen for them, but they chose it, and
yeah.
they're happy. And so that's what we have to do as parents, is kind of realize that they are not us and we are not them,
That
and only have
and
them with
also
us a little bit of time.
exactly. And like, everyone is different too. Like, you can raise two people the same exact way, and the chances of them being different are huge,
Yeah, it's crazy.
right?
I know
Um,
when I had my first kid, it was like, okay, I know what he's about. And 6 years later on my next one, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's totally different than the first one. And then I'm
there
like,
we
well,
go.
I'm about ready to have another baby, my third. Gotta be like one or the other. Can't be
There
a
we go.
totally different two. Oh, totally different. All three.
There we go. And so it's like, again, there is no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. Whether this is a parent who's listening to this and who is wants to know, like, if there's a secret formula or if there's a secret, way to do things, there is no right or wrong. You know your intention, and that is that you want to provide the best. I'm sure that's what it is. You want to give your best. And as long as you're doing it with that intention, just keep doing it, because
Mhm.
we don't have it all figured out. And if you're a teen, your decisions as well, like, it's okay. You don't have it all figured out either, and that is okay. Just keep going. Just keep
Mhm.
figure and you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Mhm.
That's what life is. Life is not something that you go through and then you achieve. Like, you can't master life. You can never master life. Like, that is impossible. So just go through it, live through it, experience it. That's what it's about. It's about experiencing it, and then you'll learn, and you'll grow. Like that's
Mhm.
it's and again, it's way easier said than done, but
Yeah.
just try. That's what I say. I just say just try that.
And then I want to just mention one caveat, because there are times when you do have to jump in as a parent if it's safety
Yes,
related. Obviously you're not going to let them go down a path that's not safe.
of
So,
course.
and then you as a teen, you need to know that your parents are going to say no, because their job is to protect you as far
Yeah,
as your safety. They
yeah,
don't want anything. And as teens, sometimes you were so excited, your brain's on fire. You're so excited about something or whatever, and you don't stop to go, wait a minute, if I do this, what is the outcome going to be? If I do this, what could happen? So that's where we have to sort of step in sometimes. If we go, wait a minute, I know you want to do this, but think about what could happen, you
yeah.
know.
It's
So
like it's to if we want to put an analogy here, it's like when you're going bowling, right?
mhm.
You have the pins, right? And I think parents want to make sure that their teen is hitting something, right? Just hitting something. Doesn't even have to be a strike, doesn't even have to be a spare, just hitting a few of those pins. Like that's awesome.
Uh-huh.
And I think the best way to put it is like that whole lane where the bowling ball can go, like that's positivity. Anything
Mm,
outside, anything like in the, I don't know what they call it, the rudder, the gutter, whatever it is,
gutter, the
the
gutter.
gutter, whatever's in the gutter, that's the negativity, that's the negative path. And I think what parents can do, and there's just an analogy for it, is to, how they put up those bumpers for
Yeah.
like, I was gonna say it for the little kids, but honestly, if I go bowling, like that's what I'll do because I'm not that great.
You don't want to go in the
Um,
gutter?
I definitely don't want to go into the gutter. But it's almost like to put up those walls to
Uh-huh.
protect them from going into the negative side of things, right?
Right.
And that is like the the bad decisions that can affect them in a really negative way,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just help them like stay in between those two lines so that they can eventually like you
Yeah.
know get a
Yeah.
strike or hit a few pins, right?
If you see them go into the gutter too much, literally into the gutter too much,
Yeah,
put the bumpers up. Put the
exactly.
bumpers up and guide them to the better way.
There we
But
go.
in relationship and connection, because if you come at them like this, it's not going to work. Right. So
Yeah,
you have to
that
work on that
yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
Wow, we went deep today.
Did go deep. Look at us.
Ay, ay,
Yeah,
ay. And then you're in training camp or training facility, right? Somewhere
yeah,
in France. So if I noticed we had like a little dog come down the stairs and a couple people in back there. So
yeah,
that's what that was. He had to find one spot where he could get good internet.
yeah. Because
Tell
then,
me what you got to do.
unfortunately, the way the place where I'm living right now, the way it's set up is that they have a bunch of like little like these tiny houses all over. And there's one
Mhm.
central like Wi-Fi connection, so it doesn't reach too well everywhere. And unfortunately, my place is one of the places where it doesn't reach that well. So even if I
Uh-huh.
hotspot, the connection isn't that great. So I'd rather come here into the main reception. That way, I get the best connection. Only downside to it is that I get to see a bunch of dogs running back and forth behind me.
And we get to too, so it's okay.
Exactly.
Kind of,
Maybe
I
next
like
time
seeing
I won't
doggies.
blur. Maybe I won't blur the background next time, so we can actually see them.
Yeah, my cats might come in too. We never know.
Yeah, we love our furry friends here
Mhm.
on Teen Talks, which, by the way, is the number one podcast for
Oh,
teens and parents,
it
right?
is the number one. So
Yeah,
say us.
on which charts in which country? Is it worldwide now?
I don't know.
We have to. I think we
I don't
have
know.
to. We have to double check that statistic, but I
Okay.
think it was confirmed. It was confirmed yesterday. Someone mentioned it to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Hey, dreams and visions. You don't have them,
there we
you're never
go.
gonna get there,
There
right?
we go.
We got this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, until next time,
Until next time, thank you
keep going.
for watching, listening, I think that's it, right? That's what they're
Yeah.
doing. They're watching, listening. They're not reading this. Is there a way for
Nope.
them to read this?
No. Well,
I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't.
no, I wouldn't read
Yeah,
it. Neither
I
would
wouldn't
they.
read it.
No.
Yeah,
But we also want to know what you want us to talk about. So
yeah,
I think on the end of this podcast video, whatever it is we're putting out here, somewhere we'll put our contact information. Please send us an email to me, DM Rehan.
yeah.
And
Definitely don't email me. Um, no, you can email me, but yeah, just DM us, message us, email us, do whatever that is. And you can even leave comments. I'm pretty sure, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment, or if you are listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever it is, like just, feel free to leave a comment somewhere, and with questions, with feedback as well.
yeah.
Let us know how it's going, if you're enjoying it, if you're not enjoying it. Like, just be
Mhm,
honest. We want to hear that feedback because it's going to help us do better, serve you
mhm.
better, and grow. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, have a good one.
All righty. Take care, Susan. We'll see you
Yeah, you
next
too.
time.
Okay, love you guys out there listening. We are here for you.
Peace.
Peace out.